Hi there, I'm Lewis Foster, a journalist here at the Manx Radio Newsroom, and welcome to this edition of Newscast. Almost £47 million has been overspent by 4 government departments in the last financial year. Tynwald members will be asked to approve supplementary votes at next month's sitting of the court in order for them to be brought in on or just under budget by the 31st of March. The Department of Education, Sport and Culture is responsible for £8,900,000 of that overspend. So I sat down with Education Minister Julie Edge and asked her why.
Clearly, obviously, there's significant financial challenges for our department in the last year, one of them being energy costs. We are one of only 2 government departments that pays our own energy costs. Everybody else are covered by DOI. So myself and Department of Home Affairs pay our own energy costs out of our budget. So in theory, if you took the energy money away from our budget, every other department doesn't pay that. So for example, the increased energy costs for my department were 3.5 million, and of course there was pressure on the department for that, but that's the reason why we're going back to Tynwald with that overall figure of 8.9 million. So 3.5 million was energy costs, mainly gas and electricity price increases.
And that extra, I suppose, 5.4 million then, what's that down to? Minister Allinson said wage increases this year has taken an impact as well. Pay awards, has that had an impact?
Pay awards, actually, the outturn on employee costs at the end of the financial year is expected to be about £8 million to budget. And obviously the figure that Minister Allinson's going to Tynwald with is not the end of the year yet, and we're working really hard to try and come under that. But there's roughly about 8 million of that is for pay awards, and that includes the 6% pay award for PSC employees, so the public sector, and then obviously it was 6.5 for our teachers. And it's really important to point out, our teachers, and I value every single one of them every day in our schools. We are linked to the UK pay structures, and we adhere to whatever is agreed through the STRB, which is the pay awarding bodies for teachers, and that's the right thing to do. So, Treasury put an amount of money in for pay increases. If we go above that, we have to then try and find it elsewhere in our budget, or we have this situation where you can be overspent. Obviously, we've made significant progress with regards to our pay for our teachers, and we've lifted starting salaries and that for the island, and certainly I think it's been helpful and supportive to the education profession on the island.
Now, we know all departments have been asked to make cost savings, so what's your department going to do to try and limit overspend going forward? Will we see some cuts?
Well, clearly, you know how fiscally responsible I've tried to be with one situation that's recently been in the media. It's really important that we do have to check every piece of spending. However, the education budget is finite anyway. It's mainly made up of salaries. It's I think it's 80% thereabouts of our budget is salary costs. So if you think of that 80-20 split, there's 20% for everything else. So obviously we do have an improvement plan in place, but one of the things that we have done as a department, and I'm sure other departments are taking this action as well, is looking at recruitment really closely, looking at how we're operating. One of the other increases in costs for last year and for this supplementary vote going to Tynwald was the number of children requiring support from our specialist provision centre. So last year alone we had 30 children who were in our specialist provision centres placements, and of course whilst we have our preschool assessment centre, we do know roughly what's coming, but out of that we also have a combination of increasing complexity of need, and additional places were required in the school year for new arrivals to the island. So whilst we're trying to build growth on the island, we will see these impacts, and that impacts on the education budget, which is set in February of the year. So that in-year shift within education and numbers of students and obviously any difficulties they have and needing specialist provision does impact us.
With that in mind, coming to next year's budget, are you asking Treasury to take that into account, the extra costs that you're bearing, especially around energy, things that are out of your control, I suppose?
Yeah, and clearly I'm always challenging to try and get additional funding into education. It's one of the most important investments for our island is education. And certainly we are presenting to Treasury the challenges of this in-year change. And I know there's recently been a report to say school roll numbers have dropped, but that's in a 1 year. And children are in our education setting for 10 years. They go to primary for 5 and then they move up to secondary and then they can go further into the UCM. So overall, if you look at the numbers that can come in the last 2 years, it's been approximately over 350 new arrivals into our schools in September of those 2 years, and there's been significant additional educational needs within that. I think there was over 150. So half of that that additional increase in numbers into our schools has been with an additional need as well.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.